Thank you all very much for coming. Hearing about Krishna, the desire to do so, the attempt to hear about Krishna is recognized by the Lord as an act of devotional service. And the Lord promises that one who hears about him, he will relieve that person from the temporary and false material desires based on identifying ourselves with his body and mind, and renovate and bring to light once again, which was very deeply hidden within the core of our hearts, the original desire to love Krishna in a particular way and serve and please him. And that is actually the perfection of life. Nivrittitarsher upagiyamanad, that hearing about Krishna and actually experiencing the topmost pleasure and ecstasies of love of Godhead, that is for liberated persons, those who have voluntarily turned aside from all different types of material desires and material mental speculations. But the hearing about Krishna is so nice that even those who are not on that platform will be brought to that platform. Cheto Darpana Marjanam Bhava Mahadevagni Nivarpanam. Let there be all victory to the process of chanting Hare Krishna, hearing about Krishna, because it cleanses the heart of all the dust, illusion, and misconceptions that have kept us bound to this material world of repeated birth and death for many, many lifetimes, extinguishing the blazing fire of anxiety. There are two worlds, the spiritual world and the material world. The spiritual world, anxiety is conspicuous by its absence. And we're going to hear about those who are not devotees of God, not devotees of the absolute truth, the qualities that they have and the type of civilization that they make. The non-devotees, they purposefully create a society of anxiety at every step, and they think themselves very heroic to discover counteracting methods to the anxiety, which never should have been there in the first place. You know, it's like if you're like hitting yourself on the head with a hammer and you discover, oh, if I stop hitting my head, then I'm going to feel better. And then you think you're a genius. So that's kind of what materialistic life is like also. But this is unknown. The solution is very, very easy. It's constitutional and it's lying dormant, and that is pure devotional service. So if we're a rare few in this spiritually worst of all ages, the age of Kali Yuga, we shouldn't be upset about that. Just like we're not upset that we have to put on a coat in the wintertime, because that's the time to put on a coat because it's cold. So be very, very encouraged and confident to continue this process of hearing about Krishna throughout your entire life. And it is guaranteed by the Lord, and even more so by the Lord's devotees. If the Lord's devotees say that something will come to pass, then declare it boldly that my devotee will never perish. He's asking Arjuna to say it. So all the acharyas have recommended this process, and it's guaranteed that we will reach complete perfection in this very lifetime. So we're reading the Bhagavad-gita, the chapter, The Divine and the Demoniac, chapter 16. No, yes, the divine and demoniac natures. And we're reading today verse 4. We just heard at length the combined verses 1 through 3. We're here, these are the qualities of godly people. earlier in the 11th chapter, where the universal form of the Lord was revealed to Arjuna. Sometimes atheistic people say, where is God? I can't see him. Because I can't see him, therefore he cannot exist. I don't believe in God. Prabhupada says in that 11th chapter, such a vision of the Lord's form is certainly divine. Who can see this divine form? Those who are also divine. In other words, one cannot have godly vision unless one makes oneself godly, him or herself. How is it possible? Just like if you want to legally practice law or practice medicine, then you have to get approved and authorized and accredited from the proper authorities to do so. Otherwise, in terms of medical field, you're a quack. I don't know what they call a charlatan lawyer.
Well, there could be a disbarred lawyer.
Disbarred lawyer.
I don't know. When he's pretending to be a lawyer, I guess they do that.
Maybe they make another sound like a pig, like oink, right? Instead of quack like a duck. Anyway. So, such persons can actually practice law and medicine. So what to speak of one who can actually perceive the summum bonum, the supreme absolute truth, the Supreme Lord in his original Svayamrup Bhagavan personal feature. It requires very high qualification, much different than any so-called qualifications of this material world. I just like to see like a big person, the head of a company or the president or prime minister of a country. You can't just like walk in and say, here I am. You have to have reason. You have to have proper recommendation, have to gone through all kinds of checks and balances to be admitted. So these very good qualities, some of them have been listed here: fearlessness, purification of one's existence, the regulative principles: no meat eating, fish or eggs, no illicit sex, no intoxication, and no gambling. By refraining from these things, then automatically one's original spiritual nature will come out. So, going out drinking, carousing, gambling, and doing all types of things, how can you expect to light a fire and be pouring water on the fuel at the same time? It's just paradoxical. It's two opposites. So, this is purification of one's existence, cultivation of spiritual knowledge, like we're doing here. Sri Krishna, who is the benefactor of the truthful devotee, who has developed urges to hear his messages, personally takes to cleansing material desires from the heart of the devotee. And such messages are certainly virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Performance of sacrifice. Sometimes people say, why are you doing what you're doing, chanting Hare Krishna? Why are you doing this? And I look at them and say, why are you doing what you're doing? I hope you're doing what you're doing because you want to do it. Well, I'm doing this because I want to do it. So sacrifice means it's not really we're sacrificing. We're actually doing something much more superior, and automatically we're not doing something which is inferior. Spiritual activities are always superior to any type of material activity. Study of the Vedas, austerity, simplicity, nonviolence, truthfulness, freedom from anger, renunciation, tranquility, aversion to fault-finding, compassion for all living entities, freedom from covetousness, gentleness, modesty, steady determination, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness, and freedom from envy, and from the passion for honor. These transcendental qualities, O son of Bharta, belong to godly men endowed with divine nature. So these things become deeper, progressive, and very, very easy and natural for someone who's always absorbed in meditating on his eternal loving relationship with Krishna. Because such an occupation, which is actually the main instruction, one should always remember Krishna and never forget him. Because if one does like this, all the other corollary necessary rules and regulations will automatically follow easily. Prabhupada says in one place, one should always strive to develop one's love for God, and that will solve all contending problems, individually and also as a society. If everyone is trained, instead of how to be a big materialist, but is trained how to worship Krishna, then this place would be much more easy to manage, much more free of anxiety, and a much more nicer place to be. So, you heard at length last week, big purport, all of these points were explained. And now, today, verse 4. We chant together? We do that?
We usually, but not always, do that.
Okay. What should I do this time?
Would you like to recite the verse?
I can do whatever everyone else like to chant. They're prepared. We have books and.
Yeah, some people don't. Most of them have phones. I think so let's do it.
Okay. Damba.
Damba.
I'll say the translation first, and then we can help us when we chant to know what we're saying more. Pride.
Pride.
Darpa.
Dharma.
Arrogance.
Arrogance.
Abhimana.
Abhimana.
Conceit.
Conceit.
Cha.
Cha.
Krodha. Anger.
Anger.
Parusyam.
Parusyam.
Harshness.
Harshness.
Eva.
Eva.
Certainly.
Certainly.
Cha.
Cha.
And. Anjanam.
Ajnanam.
That's agyanam.
Ajnanam.
Ignorance.
Ignorance.
Cha.
Cha.
And. Abhijatasya.
Abhijatasya.
Of one who is born of.
Of one who is born of.
Partha.
Partha.
O son of Prita.
O son of Pita.
Sampadam.
Sampadam.
Qualities.
Qualities.
Asurim.
Asurim.
The demoniac nature.
Of the demoniac nature.
Dambo Darpa Vamanascha.
Dambo Darpo Vimanascha.
Krodha Parosyam Evacha.
Krodha Purusham Evacha.
Agyanam Chabi Jatas. Agyanam Chabi Jatasya.
Agyanam Chabijatasya.
Partha Sampadam Asurim.
Partha Sampadam Asurim.
You can take turns.
Dambo Darpo Vimanascha.
Dambo Darpo Vimanascha.
Krodha Parusham Evacha.
Krodha Parusyam Evacha.
Agyanam Chabijatasya.
Agyanam Chabijatasya.
Partha Sampadam Asurim.
Partha Sampadam Asurim.
Anyone else?
Dambo Darpa Vimanascha.
Dambo Darpo Vimanascha.
Krodha Purusham Evacha.
Krodha Parusham Evacha.
Agyanam Chabijatasya.
Agyanam Chabijatasya.
Partha Sampadam Asurim.
Partha Sampadam Asurim.
Anyone else? One more?
Dambo Darpo Vimanascha.
Dambo Darpo Vimanascha.
Krodha Purusyam Evacha.
Krodha Parusyam Evacha.
Agyanam Chabijatasya.
Agyanam Chabijatasya.
Partha Sampadam Asurim.
Partha Sampadam Asurim.
Okay. Pride, arrogance, conceit, anger, harshness, and ignorance. These qualities belong to those of demoniac nature, O son of Prita. Purport. In this verse, the royal road to hell is described. The demoniac want to make a show of religion, an advancement in spiritual science, although they do not follow the principles. They're always arrogant or proud in possessing some type of education or so much wealth. They desire to be worshipped by others and demand respectability, although they do not command respect. Over trifles, they become very angry and speak harshly, not gently. They do not know what should be done and what should not be done. They do everything whimsically, according to their own desire, and they do not recognize any authority. These demoniac qualities are taken on by them from the very beginning of their bodies in the wombs of their mothers, and as they grow, they manifest all these inauspicious qualities. Hare Krishna. Krishna Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, natural position of the fingers on my hand, or the fingers are to cooperate with my hand, and my hand is meant to cooperate with my arm, and the arm is meant to cooperate with the desire of my mind of what I want to do, like adjust this microphone or turn this page of the book or play the harmonium. So if the hand all of a sudden wants to, whatever, then it would be problematic. So our constitutional position is to be in harmony with Krishna, the Supreme Lord. And when we're not, now Krishna is very, very kind and merciful. There are two types of, the word is Maya, or energy. We hear in the early part of the Bhagavad-gita how we, the living being, are described as marginal potency. Marginal means in between. We could either be situated in the spiritual energy. The spiritual energy is called Yoga Maya. Or we could be in the material energy, which is called Mahamaya. So we say don't be in Maya, but really we don't want to be in Mahamaya. Yoga Maya ultimately creates this super excellent atmosphere by which, as described in the very introduction, that we can love Krishna in one of five primary, but four in particular, rasas. Rasas are spiritual mellows of reciprocation of love. As a servant, Yamunacharya writes, when will I be able to be completely pacified by having such a fitting master as you? We're actually, in this material world, we're slaves to our lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, envy, as described here. But when we agree to serve Krishna, who's the very self of our self, the very soul of our soul, then that servitude becomes our spontaneous joy, ever escalating at every single moment. Anandam Bodhi Vardhanam Pratipadam Purnat Mitas Vardhanam. This chanting of Hare Krishna, which is the full manifestation of the topmost realm of Goloka Vrindavan and that facility of love, is manifested in this chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra, as we were saying earlier, Nivrittatar Shir Upagiyamanat. That the chanting and hearing about Krishna is really the occupation of liberated souls. They can actually experience the real pleasure. In this material world, our attempt to experience real pleasure is like trying to go to a fancy restaurant and eat sumptuous delicacies with bandages on your tongue. You can go through the motions, but you won't taste. So our original spiritual senses, which are meant for loving Krishna, are covered because we've chosen. Lord Chaitanya, he teaches us to pray, I.e. Nanda Tanuja Kinkaram, Patitam Mam Vishame Bhavam Buddho. Somehow or other, sometimes, how did we come here, or you lament, why did I give up being in the transcendental paradise, the Vaikuntha, the no anxiety spiritual world to be here? But it's not so much the question, what did I do previously that brought me here, is what should I do now to get out? That's much more the most important. Like if you're in a place that got lit on fire, you don't start asking who lit the fire and how did this happen. First thing you got to ask is, how do I get out and get to safety? Samsaradava Nalalita Loka Chanaya Karunaganaganat Pramptasya Kalyana Gunarnapastya Vande Guru Sri Charanarvinda. The spiritual master, the pure devotee, is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy. It's Krishna, the spiritual master, is the Kripa, the mercy incarnation of the Lord. And he is the savior and uplifter. It's described in the 7th verse of the 12th chapter, devotional service. But those who worship me, giving up all their activities unto me and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotional service and always meditating upon me, always remember Krishna and never forget him, having fixed their minds upon me, O son of Prita, for them I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. Although a man was fallen into the ocean, this material world is described either as an ocean, and one's fallen in the ocean, or as a blazing fire, a forest fire that you're trapped in. So, however, if you've fallen in the middle of the ocean, no matter how expert of a swimmer you may be, you cannot save yourself. The ocean is too vast. But if someone comes and picks him up from the water, then he is easily rescued. Such a person is the greatest savior. Similarly, the Lord picks up the devotee from this material existence. Just like a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it, so the spiritual master is delivering the materially afflicted world by showering down the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, I take shelter of such a spiritual master, and these words apply in unlimited multiplications to His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, who is an ocean of auspicious qualities. In the 18th chapter of the 5th canto, these are the prayers of Prahlad Maharaj to Lord Nrsingadev. Govinda. Don't think that Govinda is not watching your activities at every moment, and he's observing, he's seeing you, pops out at any. This is the famous verse. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati yakinchana sarver gunastatra samasate sura harav abhaktasya kuto mahadguna mano ratenasati davato bihi. All the demigods, those are the highest beings in the universe, they still have some material desires, but they're very, very much devoted to the Supreme Lord, and all their activities are, they're making them favorable. Anukul. Is pratikul, it's unfavorable, and anukul. Activities that are favorable to devotional service, pleasing to Krishna, and activities that are unfavorable. Become manifest in the body of one who has developed unalloyed devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vasudeva. On the other hand, a person devoid of devotional service and engaged in material activities has no good qualities. So there's 6 main opulences: wealth, strength, beauty, knowledge or education, renunciation, and fame. So if one possesses these things and is not using them for the pleasure of the Lord, then they're actually asuric or non-devotional. They become non-devotional qualities because they're using these things with a spirit of revolt or envy or an attempt to imitate and usurp or take the position of the personality of Godhead, who's actually the unlimited reservoir of these things. Pure devotees, they can possess these opulences in large quantities because they use them for the pleasure of the Lord. Prabhupada would tell his story. I came here with 40 rupees, and now this movement is worth 40 crores of rupees in just 10 years' time. And so wealth would just follow pure devotee. Arjuna is known as Dhananjaya, conqueror of wealth. Intelligence. Desham. Desham satata yuktanam. Bhajatam pratipurvikam dadami buddhi yogam. Dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti. All intelligence is supplied by pure devotional service. We shouldn't think someone's gone to a big, mundane, materialistic university and has been doctorately decorated, then all of a sudden this is a person of knowledge. Knowledge is described as knowing the difference between matter and spirit. And you said here, the demons, they don't know what is to be done, what is not to be done. What is to be feared, what is not to be feared. Who is to be followed, and who is not to be followed. They have no knowledge, ajnana, ignorance. On the other hand, a person devoid of devotional service and engaged in material activities has no good qualities. Even if he is adept at the practice of mystic yoga or the honest endeavor of maintaining his family and relatives, he must be driven by his own mental speculations and must engage in the service of the Lord's external energy. How can there be any good qualities in such a man? And Prabhupada writes in the purport, he gives the example of a very wonderful devotee, Pandit Haridas, who was the devotee who helped the awardment of the writing of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita be bestowed upon Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Very beautiful story in the 8th chapter of the Adi Leela. And it's described that he was very well behaved, tolerant, peaceful, magnanimous, and grave. In addition, he spoke very sweetly. His endeavors were very pleasing. He was always patient. Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavad-gita in terms, by patience, everything can be accomplished. But if one is not impatient, then the goal will not be achieved. And he was completely devoid of all malicious activities. Many times relationships in the material world are calculated, sense-gratificatory exploitation relationships, which in the beginning, as the mode of passion, it seems pleasing in the beginning, but in the end it's like poison. It turns very bad. So there's some malicious intent at the beginning. So a devotee is completely devoid of these malicious intentions. He's working for everyone's benefit. Whatever he does is the best thing for everyone, not just for family and friends or those who I choose. The devotee is friend to every living entity. And what to speak of just human beings? In all species of life, the devotee perceives the Supreme Lord as present, accompanying that soul as their friendly indwelling witness and super soul, Paramatma. So he gives proper respect to every living entity, understanding everyone to be the dwelling place of the Supreme Lord. These are all originally qualities of Krishna. And when one becomes a devotee, they automatically become manifest. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami goes on to say that only by perceiving these qualities can one understand who is actually an established devotee and one who is not. You can distinguish a Vaishnava from a non-Vaishnava. And then the 26 qualities of a pure devotee are listed. Kind to everyone, does not make anyone his enemy. Truthful, equal to everyone. No one can find any fault in him. And even if they do try to find faults from their improper motivated perspective, they're not actually faults. And in many places, what they perceive to be faults can be interpreted by actual hamsas, discerners between truth from untruth, matter and spirit. They'll take the words from the mouth of such an errant person and actually show how this is actually praise. He is magnanimous, mild, always clean. Clean just doesn't mean outward appearance, like people are very meticulous in being clean and having all the sharpest new clothes, but real cleanliness is cleanliness of consciousness. To be free from material desires. That is the ultimate cleanliness. Shuddha Sattva Gun. And on that platform is real lasting happiness. Material desires enslave us and leave us in a state of misery. Chasing after something that could never be fulfilled. Baffled at every step, again and again and again, like chasing an illusory mirage in the desert. Without possessions, he doesn't claim anything for oneself. He knows that everything belongs to Krishna and everything should be used for Krishna's service. So ultimately, such a person without possessions is the one to actually possess everything and order how and instruct how everything should be utilized. He works for everyone's benefit. He is very peaceful, always surrendered to Krishna, has no material desires. He is very meek, is steady, controls his senses, does not eat more than required, not influenced by the Lord's illusory energy. So the Yoga Maya, that is the type of Maya we wish to be in, by which Krishna becomes even more than God, becomes I stopped earlier. Becomes my dear most master, becomes my dear most intimate, equal friend. At the end of Brihad Bhagavatam Ritam, the stories of the soul of a devotee's reascension back to the topmost realm of the Lokamrindavan, and when he finally comes in his original relationship as a cowherd boy, and Krishna is waiting for him on the path and just embraces him completely heartfelt, shedding tears of ecstasy, both mutually. He said, "My dear friend, I'm so glad that you have come back. I was always waiting for you to come back." You know, and they just loving embrace, crying for a long time. Imagine having such a relationship with the Supreme Lord. And Vatsalya Prem, you know, many religions, God is our Father who is out in, thou art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Give us this day our daily bread. God is the order supplier. Gimme, I want. But God becomes your child. And those of you who have children, little babies, little toddlers, constantly demanding. You have to be constantly alert to them. And the child even knows that. Say a child is learning to walk and you're not there and they fall down and they get hurt and you pick them up. I've seen a lot of times children that like slap the mother and father. Why did you leave me? Why did you leave me to, it's like you were negligent in your duty. So that the service reaches such a height of crescendo that Krishna agrees to be your child, and even more that he wants to be corrected and guided by you. And everything reaches its ultimate culmination. On the spiritual platform, everything is one absolute, but on a higher level of spiritual ascertainment, the topmost mellow is that of conjugal love of Godhead, where the Supreme Lord becomes your most intimate lover. And that has absolutely nothing to do with the so-called maleness and femaleness of this body that is encasing our soul at the present time. And such understanding of this type of relationship with the Supreme Lord is the highest perfection of life. Not influenced by the Lord's illusory energy, he offers respect to everyone. He does not desire any respect for himself. He is very grave, merciful, friendly, poetic, expert, and silent. Prabhupada describes that silent in nonsense, and also silent worker. He doesn't advertise himself. Doesn't need everybody should look at him and praise him for what he's done. He's completely satisfied that Krishna is pleased, and that's all that's required. Because if Krishna is pleased, then everyone's ultimate pleasure has been accomplished. You don't need to get cheap popularity from people in the materialistic way of life who are really only pleased if you titillate their desire for sense gratification. So many times devotees are misunderstood because they're not distributing sense gratification. They're distributing love of Godhead, which is for everyone, but to be really relished and understood by those who are already spiritually advanced. But those who are sick under the illusory energy, they have to take sufficient medicine so the infection goes down, so that good health can come back, so that when they actually take to normal activities, they'll be able to appreciate them. Whereas a sick person, he can't appreciate normal activities. He's just in sickness. But the problem is in the material world that everyone is very sick, but they don't think that they're sick. They think that they're just A-OK. We're not A-OK because we're being crushed by the samsara chakra, by the wheel of time, and we don't understand in this ignorant illusion how we're wasting our life. And we're prepared, like here, we're preparing ourselves by hearing Bhagavad-gita in this forum to advance ourselves spiritually. We're preparing ourselves to have a better future, a better next life. We're preparing ourselves to achieve perfection. Whereas others, they're preparing themselves for their perpetual unhappiness. One materialistic, V-karmic, bad karmic activity creates like a avalanching snowball down the hill effect that forces you to do more and more of the same, like a bad addiction. And what's done today, it's like a credit card. Okay, I'm enjoying now, pay later. Huge volumes of sinful activities, and I'll just pay for it later. This is not a good way to live one's life. So, it's mentioned here in today's purport, they want to make a show of religion, an advancement in spiritual science, but they don't follow the principles. There are some very nice prayers in the 6th canto by a Maharaj Chitraketu, and he's glorifying the process of Bhagavad Dharma, pure devotional service, but then he goes on to say, being full of contradictions, all forms of so-called religion, but Bhagavad Dharma, work under the conceptions of fruit of results and distinctions of you and I and yours and mine. Fruit of result means I do this and I have to get something in exchange. And if I don't get what I want or what I expect in exchange, then I can't continue the process anymore. Just like in mundane business, if we're not getting our profit, then I won't maintain the thing. I go out of business, or cutthroat dealings. I'm gonna take what you got and make it mine, and chew you up and spit you out. I, you and I, yours and mine. The followers of Srimad Bhagavatam have no such consciousness. They are all Krishna conscious, thinking that they are Krishna's and Krishna is theirs. There are other low-class religious systems which are contemplated for the killing of enemies or the gain of mystic power, but such religious systems, being full of passion and envy, are impure and temporary. Because they are full of envy, they are full of irreligion. One of our recent presidents of the United States called other nations evildoers, alluding to the so-called religious system that most people in this country follow, and that we're right and they're wrong. And why was he doing? And someone made a funny button to wear on your jacket: liberty and justice for oil, OIL, for example. No contradictions in Bhagavad Dharma. Conceptions of your religion, my religion, are completely absent from Bhagavad Dharma. Prabhupada is being asked in San Francisco, don't you see, discrepancies between the Bible, the Koran, the Torah, and then the Vedas? No, I see no discrepancies or contradictions. If the goal is to love God, then you can follow whatever religious process suits you, just as long as the goal is achieved. God is one, and God is for everyone. Therefore, everyone must surrender to God. That is the pure conception of religion. Whatever God orders constitutes religion. There's no question of what you believe, what I believe. Everyone must believe in the Supreme Lord and carry out his orders. Anukul, favorable, Krishnanam Shilanam. Whatever Krishna says, whatever God says, should be directly carried out. That is Dharma. That is religion. If one is actually Krishna conscious, he cannot have any enemies. Since his only engagement is to induce others to surrender to Krishna or God, how can he have enemies? If one advocates the Hindu religion, the Muslim religion, the Christian religion, this religion or that religion, there will be conflicts. History shows that the followers of religious systems without a clear conception of God have fought with one another. There are many instances of this in human society, but systems of religion that do not concentrate on service to the Supreme Lord are temporary and cannot last for long because they are full of envy. There are many activities directed against such religious systems, and therefore one must give up the idea of my belief and your belief. Everyone should believe in God and surrender unto him. That is Bhagavad Dharma. And he goes on to say, how can a religious system that produces envy of oneself and of others be beneficial for oneself and for them? So actually, when you do envious activities and do violence on others, you're actually being envious and violent to yourself, because by the laws of nature, like a boomerang, it's just going to come back on you. So you're acting in your worst self-interest by doing like that. What is auspicious about following such a system? What is actually to be gained? By causing pain to one's own self due to self-envy, and by causing pain to others, one arouses your anger and practices irreligion. So he's speaking to the Supreme Lord. And later in this chapter that we're reading, chapter 16, verse 18 and 19, bewildered by false ego, strength, pride, lust, and anger, the demon becomes envious of the Supreme Lord who is situated in his own body and in the bodies of others and blasphemes against the real religion. So they create their own religion. In this Kali Yuga, that which is real religion is, by Vox Populi, irreligion. Very bad. Whereas that which is irreligion and really bad, that is very good. Everything becomes opposite. Blasphemes against the real religion. Those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, are cast by me into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life. Like freedom from fault finding. Fault finding, trying to find faults in others, is looked at by high-class devotees like a hog or a pig who's always looking to eat and find stool. Any been in a country or a place where pigs are part of the, street scene? Right.
Yeah.
So you're always looking for stool. So look at that fault. Did you hear this? Did you hear this scandal? Where is stool? Where is stool? Good. More. Give me more. So a person always tries to see the good in others. And even if there are faults, then with eyes of transcendental knowledge, one can understand that those faults are temporary and not as important as their good qualities, especially amongst aspiring devotees, those who are actually, if someone is very dirty and they're taking a shower, how can you go in there while they're taking a shower and say you're very dirty? Criticize them. Let them finish their bath and they're going to come out clean. And the pure devotee, he sees beyond the temporary bathing process and he sees their ultimate clean potential. So we should be like that also, always. And what is the main type of envy or jiva himsa that's exhibited by so-called religious systems today? Making some phony baloney, false idea of animal sacrifice, that we can eat meat. This animal has been killed in a sanctified religious process, so therefore its meat is okay to eat. Such animal sacrifices are inauspicious both for the performer and for the animal. A killer of any animal must be killed in his next life by the same animal. This is the law of nature. A person who commits murder is envious himself and also the person he has killed. The person who has killed the animal, the person who is given permission, the person who prepares the meat, the person who transports the meat, the person who buys the meat, serves the meat, eats the meat, all are culpable as murderers, accomplices in the act. Any questions or comments?
I have a question. In the world, we have to often associate with people that are proud, arrogant, all the qualities that we read in the verse.
Mm-hmm.
But either because of work or whatever, some kind of circumstance, or just the environment that we're in. So how can we sort of protect ourselves and also deal with having an association?
Did everyone hear what Kalia said?
I don't think they heard in the back.
Say it again, maybe shorter, but louder.
You could repeat like a summary of it.
Okay, so Kalia Krishna is asking that, we have to associate with persons who are described in this verse: pride, proud, arrogant, conceited, anger, harsh, and we have to, associate with them the workplace. Maybe it could even be the boss. boss, right?
Yeah, or a family member.
Family member. And what are we going to do? So there is an art how to do what's needed to be done, but at the same time not become too intimately involved. The greatest protection or buffer is to have one's own spiritual practice regulated and strong every day. We should do what it takes that we can go to bed early enough so we can rise early enough so we can have some chanting time, some reading time before we have to leave the house and go deal with it. And when we have spare time, we should turn to hearing and chanting. We have so many things that could be put on headphones that we could listen. We all spend time in the subway or on the train, transporting or driving in the car. So we should, as much as we can, associate with devotees and Krishna through the medium of sound vibration. And that'll be more easy. Krishna will give us the intelligence. He'll help us to deal with our relationships with those who are not devotees. There's a funny story in this regard that crocodile made friends with a monkey who was living on an island and tried to convince the monkey to come home with him and be a guest for lunch, or be a dinner guest. And the monkey was a little bit apprehensive about that. If I get on the back of you, the crocodile, and go with you to your home on the other island, you might just eat me. I don't know, why would I do that? You have my assurance, And so the monkey was a little more smart. The crocodile wasn't so smart. So anyway, the monkey agreed. He got on the back of the crocodile and started talking. Okay, so what are we going to have for dinner at your house? And the crocodile said, well, we're gonna rip your heart out and eat it for dinner. I said, oh, really? Well, I wish you would have told me that because I left my heart back in my tree house. So you bring me back over, and I'll go up in the tree, and I'll get my heart, and then we'll come back and we'll go to your house, and then you can eat my heart out for dinner. And the alligator, okay, that sounds good, And then the monkey is brought back, and he goes up in his treehouse. So the idea is that we associate with them, but we don't give them our heart. We don't make the mistake that their association is going to fulfill me, and not that I need their friendship or I need some type of, loving relationship or something. We should, and ultimately, because the devotee is going to be in a position of having more intelligence to perceive, situations, and Krishna will give in warning and intelligence because Krishna is involved in the lives of his devotees, whereas the non-devotees, he's not involved, he's silent, and they're taking their inspiration and instruction from the agents of the lower modes of material nature, headed by Goddess Durga Devi or Mahamaya. So how much intelligence can they have, really? Not very much. They, expert sensual dexterity, and they can analyze things in terms of material things, but that's not intelligence. We're just hearing. Real intelligence is to discern matter from spirit. So, and even more than just that, if your association or you're being involved out in the non-devotee world, you're bringing home a paycheck, or you're able to take care of your family, you're able to give donations to the devotees, then that activity, in a sense, becomes spiritualized. It becomes a type of yoga. Prabhupada encouraged his early devotees who were supporting the movement, like Gopal Krishna Maharaj. He joined in Montreal, and he was supporting the temple, which was going to not be able to be done. And Prabhupada remembered that, and Gopal Krishna Maharaj associating with these people, I feel like a non-devotee. Because you are not a karma, you're doing this for Krishna. Or right here is Brahmananda and Sasvarupa. There was a welfare office next to the 9th Precinct here on 5th Street between 1st and 2nd Avenue, and he had a job there. And he was donating his salary. And Brahmananda was a substitute teacher in the New York City Board of Education. These two devotees made this place happen in the beginning. So, what is the ultimate fall or fruit that comes from our activities? We're engaging it in the Lord's service. So whatever friction is there along the way, it becomes a source of our spiritual advancement. Anything else? Yes, Hare
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So in the purport, it stated that sorry, that distracted me. Okay, in the purport, it stated that the bad qualities are in our material bodies before we're even born, right?
Of the demons.
Right. So
Of those. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Finish your question.
so when trying to aspire to be a devotee, right, to be a disciple, is it not necessary then to continue to criticize yourself every step of the way so that you don't like manifest those those inauspicious qualities that you were kind of already born with? You know what I mean? Like, is it not necessary to be like not super hard on yourself, but very, very, very conscious of yourself every step so that you don't go back to your natural way? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not natural, but predisposed.
Condition.
Yeah, the condition.
That is a function of spiritual intelligence or alertness. One is very alert to. One becomes very, very accomplished in understanding the difference between the material energy and spiritual energy. This takes time. Actually, it's a process of revelation of actually how much implication in the material illusory conception of life we might be in. And when we say it's a gradual process, for most of us, we need time to, say, gradually wean ourselves away from attachment to unnecessary sense gratifications or ways of thinking. Some of this also has to do with just maturity of age. As we say how we're eternal spirit soul and we don't have anything to do with this body, and like topmost Bhagavad liberated devotees demonstrate that, like Prahlad Maharaj in the womb of his mother. He's 5 years old, Dhruva Maharaj. Shukadeva Goswami. He is Paramahamsa, and he stayed within the womb of his mother for 12 years. You can read in the 9th canto. And the reason? Because he did not want to be captured by the illusory energy by coming out of the womb. And his father was Srila Vyasadeva, who is described in the 10th chapter as the greatest of all Munis. Muni means very, very thoughtful person who can analyze a subject thoroughly from all angles of vision, coming to a proper decision and conclusion. It's like here they act harshly, they jump to conclusions. It's like this, and you have to think very, very deeply. It's like when we deal with others and to act for everyone's welfare, to bring out the best in others. We have to think long, hard, and very carefully what we're going to say, how we're going to act, when we're going to act, what we're going to do. This is the position of guru or spiritual master, who is always thinking of the welfare of his disciples and followers, how to guide them to ultimate perfection. So we shouldn't be too hard on ourselves, as you say. We have our regular daily quota. There's only so much we can do in a day's time. So we always strive to do our utmost. And again, I was just saying in the beginning, always strive to develop one's love for God. This will solve all contending problems. And love of Godhead is the supreme power. It's described confidentially in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So we're worshipping Radha Krishna, Krishna with his topmost devotee, Srimati Radharani. Her loving feelings for Krishna, which are incomprehensible, even to the Lord himself, but to speak of little people like us trying to understand it, is the essence of spiritual life. Whatever tiny little drop of love that we can have and experience, all comes from her. She's Ladini Shakti potency. Unlimited, she's Krishna's unlimited love flame. So, and the spiritual master is her representative. So, by pleasing the spiritual master, and the spiritual master has a mission. His mission is to please his spiritual master, and that mission is most sublime and very, very easy, is to give Krishna consciousness to others, quantitatively and qualitatively. So Prabhupada says here in the Bhagavad-gita, if one does so, one will feel oneself making very, very sound and tangible advancement. So Prabhupada said, we don't want to so much eulogize Maya, we want to glorify Krishna. So we should more and more awaken that awareness of what it's like to be, like here, mundane people, they like to hear themselves praised, that makes them feel good. So when we praise Krishna, he doesn't have a false ego. His ego is real ego. And when Krishna is praised, then everyone else is decorated and beautified and ornamented. Just like if you decorate your face very nicely, then the reflection in the mirror automatically reflects how beautiful you are. So Krishna is the substance and we are his emanation. Yes, his father was Vyasadeva and Krishna was on the planet, so Vyasadeva goes and the reason that Shukadeva goes, you're a householder and I'm a renounced sannyasi, so how can I take your assurance, because you're a householder, a married man, that how can you assure me that I won't be captured by the illusory energy, because you so he goes to Krishna Dwarka to tell him of his problem, and Krishna, I think there's a ninth canto, part 3, I don't know, in those little books, there's that picture, there's a mother, I think her name was Jalabdi. She's sitting there on the bed with him in the womb, and Vyasadeva's like, and Krishna's coming. He has Dwarkadish. She's dressed like a royal king, in this little thatched cottage. He's like talking to Shukadeva Goswami, assuring him that we will not be captured by the illusory energy. And he said, okay, Krishna, the Supreme Lord, is telling me. All right, I believe it. He comes out, and he immediately goes away, becomes a Parivjakacharya, traveling all over the world with beautiful bluish body, looking just like Krishna, and ultimately speaks the Srimad Bhagavatam, which we're all hearing today. What is it? Number 3? Nirgama
Taragalitam phalam sukadmukad amritadrava samtam.
The ripened fruit of the desire tree of all Vedic knowledge. This is the king, Grantaraj, the king of all books. Every word is completely related to Radha and Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan Dham. Any aspect of this book that you read will automatically light the fire of your original love for the divine couple. Radha Krishna, Pranamor, Yugala Kishore, Jivane Marani Gati Aranahi More. The divine couple, Shri Radha and Krishna, are my life and soul. In life or death, I have no other refuge but them. Anything else? Raphael, from
welcome back, Amaran.
Very well.
It's a privilege to have you here. My question is, New York City, there's plenty of organizations that do welfare work.
Mhm.
They feed the homeless. They work towards women's rights.
Mhm.
They do lots of human rights activities that they do, especially in the United Nations, not only in the United States, but all over the world. And I can imagine all over the universe. Does these organizations, can they get any benefit from that, even though they're not necessarily connected to Krishna consciousness? Is there anything that at the end of their days or at the end of their lives they can gather and say, okay, we have accomplished something? And it's not something
The accomplishment is that they've acted with mundane piety, which is good. I think it says in the 12th chapter, one place, if you can, then work for some good cause.
Give up your results, like at least
You know,
work for some good cause, some charity.
here's Brajanandan Prabhu. He's a very wonderful devotee, and he's keeping alive in the United States. Travels all around Prabhupada's Transcendental Book Distribution, and he meets all kinds of people. Maybe you could comment on this question. You meet people who are, and you're also going a lot to college campuses and meeting young people who are very idealistic. They, do something, be the change you seek, right? Like Mahatma Gandhi said, we can make a difference. And so those people are a little more favorable than the ones that you're meeting are just looking to get themselves economically set up, and they can, get that gold ring off the Ferris wheel and, enjoy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Generally speaking, people who are into social work, environmental who want to do something for the environment, they're generally very favorable to Krishna consciousness. They will usually take a book from me. Even people in the physics, they want to understand something about the world also, but on topic. People who have some piety, it is a sort of prerequisite for Krishna consciousness, and it's like having fertile ground.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like Krishna says, it's a step in the right direction. He says if you can't do this and you can do this, and you meditate on me. If you can't meditate on me, at least give up some of your results.
The real thing is that we have to be out there and tell them what is the ultimate welfare work. I know I myself, when I understood what Krishna consciousness was, I wanted to do something to help people when I was a teenager. And when I understood what Prabhupada's mission was, then I immediately said, this is what I'm going to give my life to. And I'm just, a regular, ordinary person. There's plenty of people out there like that. So if you don't have the information of Krishna consciousness and you want to do good, you want to help people, you want to help a good, then, and you don't know what is the best thing, then, you'll do the other thing. But ultimately, like we cure a disease, the person still has to die, or we feed the poor, or we keep them from getting hungry, they have to die also. Or, discrimination and human rights and this and that. We haven't helped them for what's going to happen to them in their next life after they leave their body. But if we help awaken them to their original love of God, which is eternal, then we've given them something that they can keep forever. So therefore, is the topmost welfare activity, the topmost philanthropy. You can read in verse 77 and 78 of Adi Lila, chapter 3 of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Of all a person might sacrifice for a good cause, his wealth, his words, his intelligence, his reputation. To do that philanthropy, charity, or sacrifice for the Sankirtan movement, or spreading the principles of pure devotional service by which one can achieve eternal love of Godhead, nothing can compare to it. One who does so is recognized by Krishna directly and endowed with his full mercy. So we should give people the opportunity. Let them hear and understand. And, this is just logic. I give you something temporary. We do something and it gets a temporary benefit. Or we do something and you get eternal benefit. Which is better? Which is a better choice? It's just logic. Example is given, say you're in like Grand Central or Port Authority or Penn Station and you see like a 3 or 4-year-old child just crying all alone. Where's my mommy? Where's my mommy? What would everybody do right off the bat? Look all around, where's the child's mother? A lot of times the mom went in the store and the kid wandered away, okay, and mother and child reunion. Back with the mom. Everything is solved. Now, if you were to think, oh, why don't I bring you into the Duane Reade and buy you a drink and maybe a ham sandwich or something? And here's a handkerchief and you feel a little better? I mean, here's a pack of bubble gum. Okay, bye. And the child is still in the middle of the very brutal Long Island Railroad corridor between 7th and 8th Avenue, which is like one of the most nasty places I could think of to be, especially at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Everybody would condemn you. You'd be written up in the Daily News as like a laughing stock and a fool, So we do some temporary benefit, buy a ham sandwich and a drink from the Duane Reade and, a pack of bubble gum. And you feel better? Everything okay? Yeah, I feel good, I'm not being discriminated against anymore because I'm a this or a that. Thank you, Or whatever, You're still in the material world. You're not with your real shelter. Surrender to Krishna is just like a child surrendered and protected by the mother and father. The loving mother and father know exactly what the child wants and are there to supply it immediately without the child even asking. So the devotee has such faith in the Lord's protection. So to reunite, we're all like 4-year-old kids lost in Penn Station without our mom and dad. That's all our position in this material world. We're wandering around in this place, being baffled for real happiness and real permanent solace at every moment. And if somebody comes and just offers us a ham sandwich and a drink from the Duane Reade, then it's like a laughing stock. But if that person says, okay, maybe mom and dad are kind of far away, but if you just say, Hare Krishna, mom and dad will be right there. Maybe you have to call the police and put the child with the police, and the police will find something. But our process is instant reuniting with the real source of our shelter and protection. Then you're the real friend. Then you're the real good Samaritan. And then you're the real Savior. So the more that we personally save our own soul by regulated sadhana and contact with Krishna through the proper means, hearing and chanting and associating with those who have taken Krishna as the ultimate goal of their lives, that association is very sublime. Then we become fit and inspired and empowered to do the same act of kindness upon others. And that is the most accelerated process of your own individual spiritual advancement. Prahlad Maharaj said, as for me, I don't wish to be liberated alone, leaving aside all of these poor people. Because I know that without Krishna, one cannot be happy. I'm simply concerned with love for them. Not even, I don't even want to go until they go first. They should go first. Like with 9/11, the firemen go in there and they're not going to leave the building until we make sure everyone is clear. How heroic, how praiseworthy. Many of them lost their lives for doing that. But in Krishna consciousness, you're not going to lose your life. Quite to the contrary, being around the non-devotees and being whittled. But if you're around them to give them Krishna consciousness, material spiritual energy is always, the sun is always more powerful than darkness. Darkness is simply a conception of the absence of light. So expose light and there's no darkness. For one who's actually advanced in Krishna consciousness, meeting those who are not engaged in Krishna consciousness, non-devotees, is not a disadvantage. Because by the association of the pure devotee, they become devotees also. It's like Srila Prabhupada, he came here, one person. Actually, they're discussing like Harvard Indologists, and they say Prabhupada is even greater than Christ or Mohammed. Christ or Mohammed, they started a religion getting people from their local place and influencing the people in their local places and his group. Prabhupada came out of his local place to a place completely foreign to him and recruited people who had nothing to do with his country or his culture, and started a worldwide movement that went all over the world and ultimately went back to his own country. Simply amazing. So, the more we discuss and contemplate Krishna consciousness, the more very beautiful things that we'll come to understand. This is the same Chitraketu. O unconquerable Lord, although you cannot be conquered by anyone, you are certainly conquered by devotees with control over their mind and senses, because their mind and senses are fixed on Krishna. They can keep you under their control because you are causelessly merciful to devotees who desire no material profit from you. Indeed, you give yourself to them, and because of this, you also have full control over your devotees. So, this mutual conquering between the Lord and his devotees back and forth is the ultimate perfection of life. He's praying, will I again be able to be a servant of your eternal servants who find shelter only at your lotus feet? O Lord of my life, may I again become their servant, so that my mind may always think of your transcendental attributes, my mind always glorify these attributes, and my body always engaged in the loving service of your lordship. O lotus-eyed Lord, as baby birds that have not yet developed their wings always look for their mother to return and feed them, as small calves tied with ropes await anxiously the time of milking, when they will be allowed to drink the milk from their mothers, or as a morose wife whose husband is away from home always longs for him to return and satisfy her in all respects, I yearn for the opportunity to render direct service unto you. I'll say one more thing and we'll stop tonight. So this conquering, you can't be conquered by anyone. The Lord and his devotees both conquer. The Lord is conquered by the devotees, and the devotees are conquered by the Lord. Because of being conquered by one another, they both derive transcendental bliss from their relationship. The highest perfection of this mutual conquering exhibited by Krishna and the gopis. These are the topmost devotees of the Lord, the highest saintly beings in the entire cosmic manifestation. Whenever Krishna played his flute, He conquered the minds of the gopis, and without seeing the gopis, Krishna could not be happy. So the beauty of the Lord's devotees and their perfected spiritual bodies are exclusively for the Lord's pleasure. So the adage, don't try to see Krishna, but act in such a way that Krishna wants to see you, or that our transcendental loving devotional service should be so advanced that we could even make an advance on that axiom, that don't try to embrace Krishna, but act in such a way that Krishna wants to embrace you. And Krishna does not want to embrace, nor does he receive any pleasure in embracing a material body. He embraces spiritual bodies. And spiritual body is for the pure devotee. Prabhupada said in one place, only devotees can know that they're not their body. So we're speaking of some advanced subject matters, but we always say, you're not your body. But to really understand that means that you have to understand what is your spiritual body. And spiritual body is only based on pure love of Godhead, fully aroused. So we should be very interested in hearing the topics of the supreme perfection of love of Godhead. We should hear about the loving relationships between the greatest devotees of the Lord and the Lord's reciprocation with them. And this is the most powerful method to regain and revive our original identity in eternal perfection. So I think we've gone long enough. Thank you very much. Prabhupada ki jai.
Right.
Hare Krishna.